He's deep, dog.
This illusion. And you understand that black implies white. Self implies other. Life implies death. You can feel yourself, not as a stranger in the world, not as something here unfading, not as something that has arrived here by fate, but you can begin to feel your own existence as absolutely fundamental. What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself.
Is that a diva law? Like, what the heck?
The basis of all Indian philosophy, particularly speaking of the books called the Upanishads, which are really the distilled essence of Hindu thought. The basis is called the self. And this word in Sanskrit is Atman, and that means self in the vastest possible sense and the most inclusive sense of the word. It means yourself, and it means also self as such, existence as such, the totality of all being.
Crisis actor.
But from the standpoint of logic, we can't say anything about everything. Because in order to say something about something and state it logically, you have to be able to put it in a class. Now, classes are intellectual boxes. Is it when you play games like animal, vegetable, and mineral, you've got there 3 boxes. And when you come to think of it, you don't know any one but are. Because in order to have a box, there must be what's inside the box and what's outside the box. And then by this method of contrast, we can make a logical discussion about things. All words, therefore, are labeled on intellectual frigidity. But then, when you come to what fundamentally is, then you're without a box, and you can't do
What? What?
Of course, you can distinguish is from is not.
What?
But only in a very limited way.
I have a dream.
I have a pen in my left hand, I do not have a pen in my right hand. And from this we abstract the idea of be and not to be, is and isn't. But when we consider being with a capital B, this includes not only such is as celestial bodies,
What's popping, guys?
but also such isn't as the space that
Everything
encompasses.
Gucci over there?
Wow.
And these two go together, as we shall see in more detail as the time goes on. But now, a perfectly logical person can therefore say that the notion of
You
the
mean suck
self,
cock?
the Atman, as the fundamental reality, in which everything else exists, is meaningless. And of course, from a logical point of view, it is. But at the same time, just because something cannot be put into a logical category does not indicate that it is real. The self, you see, bears somewhat the same relationship to the world as the diaphragm of the speaker of this radio bears to the music you've just been hearing. None of the music was about the diaphragm, and nobody said anything about there being a diaphragm. The diaphragm as such didn't come into the picture, and yet it was everything in the picture. All those different noises were vibrations of this thin film of metal.
Someone should find where this guy lives.
So also with the apparatus of
Someone
your
needs to find where
eyes.
this guy lives and check if he's okay.
So one might ask then, just as you say, well, what is it on? What is the music on? Is it on tape? Is it on a speaker? Is it on a drum? Whatever the variation may be. We can ask the question, what are you all on? What is all this on? And the Hindu's answer is on the self.
What?
Confused! What the fuck is that?
It's saying that the self in each one of you is really at root one. Just in the same way that you have all over your body millions of nerve ends. Each one of those nerve ends is, as it were, a little eye, because all the senses are fundamentally one sense. There are various forms of touch. And the most delicate of the forms of touch is, of course, the human eye. Then the ear, and so on down the list of the senses. Now imagine then every little nerve end is a little eye. And it gets its impression of the world, but it sends it all back into the central brain. Well, in a somewhat similar way, every person, every animal, every what the Hindus call sentient being, and even rocks are regarded as sentient beings, very, very primitive form, right down to the lowest. So all those forms we see may be looked upon as the eyes that look out of one central self. Only, of course, in the body, in the human body, we can see the connections between the nerve ends and the brain. It's much more difficult to see the connection between one individual.
You're hired.
If they're married, that's a little bit closer. Just all us human beings walking around, we're not even rooted to the ground like trees.
You pretend to be in a school. That's getting shut up.
Form the impression.
That's your job.
I am only inside my bag.
Yeah.
But myself is a different self from yourself. And we're all, therefore, fundamentally disconnected.
What?
Have a good night, y'all.
How did I get so high?
So
I'm using
your
the accent.
apparent disconnection, the fact that you are not tied to other people with umbilical cords,
He's just
or some
autistic.
kind of wiring,
I'm sorry, man.
gives
My
you
bad.
one mind. Nevertheless, we do have one mind. In the sense that, for example, all of us turn out to be approximately the same shape. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a mouth, 2 hands, 2 legs, and so on. A haiku poem, Japanese haiku, says 100 gourds from the mind of one vine. And so it is with people. And so it is with everything in the world. That's just from a purely physical point of view. But going yet deeper, we find that it's somehow a necessity of thought that there be some sort of a something which is the common ground of all these universes, all these galaxies. And that ground is the self.
Do you know Ed Sheeran is a cultist? Yeah.
Now that's quite a startling point of view. Because what it's saying is, you see, that you are basically the works. Now,
Yeah.
the Hindus do say that the self, the great self, is consciousness. But of course that does not mean consciousness in the sense of our ordinary everyday consciousness. Ordinary everyday consciousness is indeed a form of this kind of consciousness, shall we say manifestation. But then there's also consciousness which doesn't notice, but nevertheless is highly responsive. The way your heart beats, the way you breathe, the way you grow your hair, you're doing it, but you don't know how it's done. So therefore, just in the same way that conscious attention is not aware of all the other operations of the body, so in just that way, we are not aware of our connection, indeed our identity, with the fundamental self.
Just find where he lives and murder him. And take his skin and become him.
When the leaves die, fall off the trees, or the fruit drops, next year, more leaves, more fruit. So in the same way, when you and I die, more babies later. If the whole human race dies, you bet your life. There are all kinds of things that feel that they're human, scattered throughout the multiplicity of galaxies. Because this universe is a peopling universe.
Hey, you should
just
give us
as
a
an
sample.
apple tree apples. But because we are unconscious of the intervals, we are not aware of the self with our conscious attention when conscious attention is operating. But still, just as you don't notice what your pineal gland, say, is doing at the moment, so in the same way, you don't notice the connections which tie us all together, not only here and now,
Hey man, it was
but
alright.
ever. The difficulty and the basic reason why we don't notice the self is that the self doesn't need to look at itself. A knife doesn't need to cut itself.
Okay, nice.
Fire doesn't need to burn itself. Water doesn't need to quench itself. And a light doesn't need to shine on itself.
That's how you get murdered.
So, this is the fundamental problem of having some sort of awareness of the self. Nevertheless, it is the whole contention of Indian philosophy,
Fast food restaurant.
Vedanta, that it is possible, in a certain way, to become aware of oneself in its deepest sense, to know that you are the totality. And this experience is the real substance of Indian philosophy as a whole, both Hindu and Buddhist. It is called moksha, which roughly means liberation. Liberation from the hallucination.
I want you to kill yourself.
That you are just poor little people. To wake up from that kind of hypnosis and discover that you are simply something, your organism, your physical body, your conscious attention.
And pay taxes, that's all we're gonna do.
That you are something
figure it out.
being done by
I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it's
vast,
expensive.
indescribable self, which is out of time,
Depends on what tax bracket you live in though.
You want to hear some good quick comedy?
no end.
What does a skeleton play?
Discontinuous. It's beyond all categorization whatsoever.
You-
And so the Upanishads say, all we can say of it positively,
Hey, shut the fuck up, fag.
neti neti, it is not this, it is not that.
A bone instrument.
Or you die.
Anything, therefore, you can formulate, imagine, picture,
It's not a joke.
will not be the self.
It's supposed to be a bunch.
So
it's
when
supposed
you
to be
are
a
trying
trombone, but it's
to know
that's
the
my
self,
own little spin on it. It
you have
makes
to
no
get rid of
sense.
every idea in your
Bro,
head.
that was a shitty joke, bro, not gonna lie.
Doesn't
It was
mean
supposed to be
something
shitty, dude.
you think that you have to get rid
Don't worry about it.
of every sense impression.
If that was your goal, bro, then you passed,
It
chief.
isn't as if you had to go
that?
catatonic.
I said if that was your goal, then you passed.
Total absorption.
Yeah, I get.
Of course, that can be done. But the full moksha, the full liberation, is when you come back out and see this everyday world just as it looks now.
Keep fighting you guys
But
so
see
much.
as clearly can be that it is all the self.
More jokes?
Is that actually? Wait a second. Beep is. Wait, you looked up my Discord? Oh.
You can become aware of this tremendous,
I did 99 and 1 on this guy.
I don't know.
and that is what somebody who is moksha, who is liberated, sees. He sees, shall we say, that
Yeah, I
everything
don't know
goes
why.
together,
Wait.
and that is, in a way, what we mean by relativity. Because relativity means relatedness. Just as fronts
Bro,
go
what
with
the
backs,
fuck?
and tops with bottoms, insides with outsides,
Oh, I thought I killed him.
solids with spaces. So everything
But no.
that is goes together.
Demo, you saw that knife. Demo, you saw the
Makes no
knife.
difference whether it lasts a long time or whether it lasts a short time.
The guy who was bunny hopping, I turned to my right.
A galaxy goes
right click
together
his
with all the
back and died.
universe just as much as a mosquito, which has a very short life. From the standpoint of the self, time is completely relative. You can have, if you scale it down, as much time between two of those very rapid drum beats as you can in eons and eons and eons. It's all a question of point of view, or to use a scientific expression, level of magnification. It's very important to understand not only the relativity of size and of time, but also of what there is. Now, as you know, the human senses respond only to a very small band of the known spectrum of vibrations. We know through instruments of quite a vast spectrum. We, as I say, with our
Can you
senses, see
the bass in your
only
microphone? Holy shit.
if our senses were in some way altered, we would see a rather different looking world. We can do this, of course. We can put on special lenses to enable us to see heat. And then we see all the heat radiations coming out of people. And we say, well, I never noticed that about you before. But so in the same way, you see, there are infinitely many possibilities of vibration and of organs sensitive to those vibrations. So that there could be worlds within worlds, spaces within spaces, just like the many, many wavelengths of radio and television, going on forever and ever in all directions. The possibilities are infinite. But having senses and noticing is a selective process. It picks out only certain ones, just as when you play the piano. You don't take those arms and slam down all keys at once.
I'm just gonna get going. Also, I play huge, so anything is too long on this game.
It is picking out certain things as significant, that is to say, as constituting patterns. And the whole universe, the process, plays with different patterns. But whatever it does, whatever it plays, in whatever dimension, on whatever scale of time or space, it's all on the self. Self is also known in Sanskrit as Brahman.
Why you bully?
This is a neutral word. Brahman is from the root BRH, which means to expand, to grow. It isn't quite clear exactly why this word was chosen. Sometimes there's a still better word for the self, which I like, is the word tat. Almost like tit for tat. Tat means that. We get our word that from the Sanskrit tat. And so when the baby comes into being, first of all, the first thing it says is dat. The baby is pointing. Da, da, da. And it's saying that. Look, isn't that? Oh, that. See? So that
crazy.
is the witch, the witcher. And so you get the formula in this Brihadaranyaka. That, tuam, Latin, no, you are that. Or that thou art. That art thou.
Damn, that's crazy. God damn.
So, in this sense then, every self is modeled on and is an expression of the one self, because you all feel individually that you're the center of the world. Everything else is seen in circles, circling out, sphering out where you are. And that's, as it were, we call them microcosms. Then in the same way, the macrocosm has a central self, although this is not central in the way we talk about centers in space.
Not gonna lie, oh hey bro, I didn't even mean to kill you.
The center of a circle is in the middle of the circle, the circumference is away from it. But you could use a phrase that the Christian theologians have used of God. That circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. You could speak of it that way. It isn't in the middle of the universe, spatially speaking. You might ask the question, where is the universe? Ever thought of that? Where is it? Well, you can't say where, because everywhere has to be in relation. It would have to be another universe to say where this one is. But then, since those two together would constitute the universe, we wouldn't still be able to say where it was. It isn't anywhere. And so in that sense, the center isn't anywhere in space, locally. Furthermore, the kind of space we are dealing with is only one possible kind of space. Kind of space. Our physical organisms are attuned. We are, you see, like the radio. We pick up what wavelength we are on.
It's kind of died off.
So then, when inquirers used to come to that great model Sri Rama, and they'd ask him all sorts of silly questions, like, who was I in my last incarnation? What will I be in my next one?
It's almost all enough to
Always
know.
reply, who is asking the question? Find out, because that's the thing you need to do. As it were, dig down into the depths of your and say, what is it? That's one of the very
I got
fascinating
first place
questions.
with an accent.
It's also
There's something wrong right now.
teases us out of thought. Think about
Yeah,
death.
I was like kind of shocked you were just kind of destroying everybody with that. Well,
It does have a fixed pattern, but even then.
You can't. And yet, it's a thought that although you can't get to grips with it, it remains fascinating.
I'll probably go one more game.
Also the question, how is it suddenly that you awakened into this world? Where were you before? In Zen Buddhism, they have the meditation problem, the koan. Before your father and mother conceived you, what is your original nature? And that's the same sort of weird question as what it would be like to go to sleep and never wake up. What was it like to wake up having not previously gone to sleep? It's very mysterious. But as you go on and plumb this question, you begin to develop the feeling that your existence is exceedingly odd. In many ways odd. Odd because it is here and it so easily might not have been. After all, if your father hadn't met your mother,
Nah, bro, you good.
would you be here?
Yeah, bro, I'm not gay.
Now, of course, somebody would be here, because he might have met somebody else.
I'm about to leave.
Would that be you? Of course it would. Don't you see? You can only be you by being someone. But every someone is you. Every someone is I. That's your name, you say. It's me. I am here. And everybody feels that I'm in the same way. Special case of it, coming out from the, in quotes, central eye, like so many tits from the belly of a sow, so many spines from a seal, so many legs from a spider. That is, of course, why the images of the Hindu gods are shown with many arms or many faces, because it is saying that all arms are the arms of divinity. All faces are its masks. So, you see, there's really nothing to worry about. Because the important view is perfectly indestructible. It's what there is. Our coming, our fortunes and misfortunes are a sort of mirage. The more we know about them, the more we know about them, the more diaphanous. Everything in the world has the characteristics of smoke. You know, when you blow a cigarette or a pipe or something and a cloud of smoke and it's full of all kinds of marvelous things, and then slowly it disappears. Well, everything's just like that. take to that state of affairs. You could say sour grapes is all a lousy, wretched trap. And here I am, and I'm given all these feelings of love and affection and the joy of life, and I fall apart. My teeth drop out, my eyes become feeble, I get cancer or cirrhosis of the liver, and this all falls apart, and it's too bad. But on the other hand, a weaving of smoke can be very beautiful, provided you don't lean on it, provided you don't try to preserve it, catch hold of it. Then you destroy it. So exactly the same way, there's nothing in the way that you can lean on, that you can grasp. And if you see that, then the world of form is very beautiful. If you let it go, to love people, you see, if you're husband and wife, you must let each other go. Otherwise, the marriage is either going to break up or it's going to be hell. If you love a person, you say to that person, I love you, whatever that may be. I see to my will. Still it's you, and I want you to be what you want to be.
Very good shot.
So, when the Hindu and Buddhist philosophers, from all this apparent world of separate beings, detachment means going with this whole thing and not resisting its change. And you can afford to go with it. You can afford to get mixed up and to fall in love and to involve with all sorts of things. You could afford it if you know that it's an illusion. It's not illusion in a bad sense of the word. Here's this Hindu word. The world is called Maya. This word Maya, yes, it means illusion. It means art. It means delineation or measurement. So from matra we get meter. Material. Isn't it funny? Material. Today we mean something very real. Whereas the root of the word is illusion. So you see, I mean, measurement is kind of an illusion. You don't find inches lying around. You can't pick up an inch. So in the same way that hours and inches and pounds and dollars and so on are actually imagined. They're elaborate systems of cosmic cooking with their little scratches on paper, little hairlines on dials. So in exactly that way, the distinction between things is Maya. But what an imagination. In a way, to say that the world is Maya is at the same time to say that what lies behind Maya is immaterial. Look at the reversal of the world. Oh, it's immaterial. It doesn't matter. What matters? But that gets us to a deeper point yet. The self, the real self, doesn't matter. Which is another way of saying it doesn't exist for any purpose. It doesn't need to exist for any purpose. What purpose would it exist for? when it's what there is. It won't find anything in the future. There's nothing in the past. It has to go back and remember. Is now, an eternal now. So in that way, it doesn't matter. But therefore, the most important thing in the universe is the one thing that doesn't matter, the one thing that's totally and completely useless, and that nobody can find anything for. Once a Zen master was asked, what is the most valuable thing in the world? And the answer was, why? Because no one can put a price on it. So this self, the Brahman, is like the head of a dead cat. But you see, if then you say, I really ought to get that dead cat's head because something spiritual about it. It'd be very good for me. After all, if I knew the self, I might be a better person. People might like me more. I'd be more constructive in society. I would do this, that, and the other. You see, that's putting the cart before the horse. That's trying to make the tail wag the dog. The knowledge of Brahman, the self, never does anybody any good if they're trying to make it do them some good. Only when they are not concerned with whether it does them any good or not, does it do them any good. Like when you relax, you go out and play. Americans in particular don't know how to do it. But they always tell you. They always say it's good to exercise, to change, to work, to be able to make you work better. Everything they do is done for some serious reason. Protestant. And so we never play. It's very exceptional. Because play is that which is done just for fun. So the self, the Atman, the Brahman, there's no reason to exist. It's completely useless. And it is therefore, Maya is linked with the word Lila. And that means play. Also, of course, the word illusion in English is derived from the Latin ludere, play. So the nature, you might say, of the self is that it does no work. It only plays. a purpose, because you believe that you've got to go on living. You work to survive, because you think you have to survive. That was one of the things they told you as a little child. You've got to go on, man. You don't have to. This thing doesn't have to go on. That's why it does. I know that sounds paradoxical, but there's so many things in life that are like that. If I'm trying to impress people, I usually don't. If you try too hard with anything, you usually make a mess of it. And so, this basic thing then is that the self, the Brahman behind the world, is engaged in play. It is in this sense that the Hindu philosophers say Brahman does not actually become the world. The meaning of that is you play being, or its play. So, you must remember, of course, that the word play and the word game have many levels. We are accustomed to use the word play in opposition to work and to regard play as trivial, work as serious. Very largely, a game is something associated in our minds with triviality. You're only playing with me, says a girl to a suitor. You're not serious. How serious do you have to be? When does one get serious in flirtation? When do we say this is getting serious? When you're holding hands, playing footsies under the table, kissing, together, married and babies. Maybe that's serious. And, we also use the word play in a non-trivial sense. I went to hear Heifetz playing the violin. Was that a trivial matter? On the contrary. The very highest kind of art form. Still playing. I say too, when I do philosophy, I'm doing review, this is entertainment. But in the sense, perhaps I hope, that you're listening to someone play a musical. I'm not being serious, but I am being sincere. The difference, you see, between seriousness and sincerity is that seriousness is someone speaking in the context of the possibility that there is a situation where things might go absolutely wrong. And then I put on the expression which is serious. That's why soldiers on parade are always serious. They don't laugh. And when they salute the flag, they put on the stern expression. That's why in courts of law and in churches, people don't normally laugh, because all that we deal with here is very important, a matter of life. But the fundamental question must be brought forth, is God serious? And obviously the answer is no, because there's nothing to be serious about. said also that the self, as conceived, the supreme self, is quite useless. That it was immaterial. It doesn't matter. Because it transcends all values of what is better or worse, what is upwards or downwards, what is good and bad. It so weaves the world that the good and the bad play together, like the black and white pieces of chess. So, play is deeply the sort of thing children like to do with deep absorption and fascination, to drop pebbles into the water and watch the concentric circles of waves. Or mathematicians. Mathematicians, you know, especially what we call higher mathematicians, are entirely lacking in seriousness. They couldn't give a hoot in hell as to whether what they're doing has any practical application. They are working entirely on interesting puzzles and working out what they call elegant and beautiful solutions to these puzzles. And they can go on and on like that in absorbed meditation, spend their whole lives doing it. Or consider the musician, practicing, working out interpretations. What is he doing? He's making a series of interesting noises on instruments. Now, what do people like to do when they don't have to do anything? Well, as far as I can make out, as you look all over the world, they like to get together and do something with it. They may dance, they may sing, they may even play games, because, say, in playing dice, there's a certain wonderful rhythm, shaking the cup, rolling the dice out on the table, or dealing cards. You know, all the things that people like to do and think about these rhythms. Or some people like to knit. Rhythmic things. There are all sorts of ways in which we love to do this. Now you see, our very existence, waking and sleeping, eating and moving, that's all we're doing. Just consider what we do. What's it all about? Does it really mean anything? Does it go anywhere?
So proud.
It's just because we want to keep on doing this kind of a hoop-de-da. So you can get a certain vision of life where everything is seen to be a complex pattern of rhythm. Dances, the human dance, the flower dance, the bee dance, giraffe dance. Or also comparable to those games. Poker, bridge, backgammon, chess, checkers, etc. Or to various musical forms, sonata, fugue, partita, concerto, or whatever. And that's what this all is, it's jazz. See? This is a big jazz. And what it's trying to do is to see how jazzed up it can get. How far out this play of rhythm. Because that's what we all come down to. We're going to this in every conceivable way. So then that is why we see this fundamental view that the world is play. Now, let's examine the rules of this game. The basic form of the cosmic game, according to the Hindu view, is the game of hide and seek. Or you might call it the game of lost and found. Or again, now you see it, now you don't. In examining the nature of vibration, we find a very peculiar thing. If you represent vibration as a wave motion, you will notice that there is no such manifestation as half a wave. We do not find in nature crests without troughs or troughs without crests. No sound is produced unless there is both. Both the beat, as it were, and the between. Now, this wave sound is happening on ever so many scales. There is the very, very fast wave of light, the slower wave of sound. Then there are all sorts of other wave processes. The beat of the heart, the rhythm of the breath, waking and sleeping, the peak of human life from birth to maturity down against death. And the slower the wave goes, the more difficult it is to see that the crest and the trough are inseparable. So that we become persuaded in the game of hide and seek that it is possible for the trough to go down and down and down forever and never rise to a crest.
Nice shot.
Forgetting that trough implies crest, just as crest implies trough. There is no such thing, you see, as pure sound. Sound is sound silence. Light is light darkness. Light is pulsation. And between every light pulse, so the Hindu image is that the self eternally plays a game of hide and seek with itself.
Great heat.
Hindus calculate time in kalpa units. And the kalpa is 4,300,000 years. And so they say that for a period of a kalpa, the worlds are manifested, or any particular universe, not all universes, but let's say any particular galaxy or whatever it may be, world order of some kind. Don't take this too literally. Don't take these figures as being some sort of divine revelation as to making predictions and prophecies. They're symbolic figures. So, for one kalpa, the world is manifested, and that period is called in Sanskrit a manvantara. And during that time, the Brahman plays hide. And it hides in all of us, pretending that it's us. And then at the end of the kalpa, there comes the period called pralaya. And that also is a kalpa long. And in that period, the Brahman, as it were, comes out of the act and returns to itself in peace. This is a very logical idea. What would you do?
Counter-terrorists win.
Isn't the whole fun of things, as every child knows, to go on adventures, to make believe, to create illusions, that is to say patterns. And so, for some ways of talking in Hindu thought, this world is the dream of the Godhead. The Godhead is, of course, represented as in a way two-faced. With one face, he dreams and is absorbed in the dream world. With the other face, he is liberated. In other words, what you have to understand correctly is that from the standpoint of the self, the supreme self, the pralaya and the manvantara are simultaneous. But put into mythological form for human consumption, they are represented as being in sequence, following each other, but they really happen at the same time. So that one doesn't realize union with the self after death, later than a certain